Welcome, everyone. Thanks for braving the elements down here in, sunny Florida, where it likes to rain all the freaking time. I lived here for 20 years and absolutely love the storms. Big shout out to all of the sponsors and everyone that has a booth out there, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do events like this, and especially Partake and Vincent, where we are. Big shout out to y'all for inviting me and having me up here. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna jump into this. Show of hands. Who knows about accessibility? A lot of you. How many of you work with companies or work at companies that value accessibility? Ooh, nice. How many of you work at companies who have no idea what accessibility is? All right, good deal, good deal. My name is Homer Gaines. I am the staff UI engineer and accessibility specialist for a company called Guru. I lead the design systems team. We're also responsible, obviously, for accessibility, UX, and also the UI of the project. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is building accessible components. So we all build stuff. We all build applications. We all write code. We all do our thing. Before I jump into that, I realized that it can be hard to see the monitors towards the back. So I have bit.ly viewconf-A11Y. If you go to that URL, if you want, you can pull up these slides and you can follow along with me. That way you don't have to strain your eyes to possibly see. Hopefully the contrast is good enough that it stands out. Because kind of jacked up to give an accessibility talk with low contrast. And I try to be mindful of those things. I don't need to get trolled for this. This is my profession. This is what I do. Not very credible if I don't even follow my own advice, right? So, but this is the URL to follow along with the slides. So we hear about accessibility, and a lot of times, one question that I get is, yeah, it's cool, but where do I even start? How do I even get into this? And why should I even worry? Whoa, that was interesting. You guys want to see my code? This is definitely the opposite of do it live, because we are not live coding. Why did that go away? Stay there. Sit, Ubu. Alrighty. Hey, there we are. So, ADA. ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Started here in 1990. It was started up by George Bush Sr. And basically what this means is that businesses will provide equal or equivalent access to all individuals regardless of, their capabilities or their abilities. Since then, 70 economies all over the world have adopted some form of accessibility guidelines that govern not only government sites, but also privately held commercial sites. So basically, if you have a business and you're putting it online, you need to make sure that your websites are accessible for individuals with disabilities. Just recently this year, the DOJ finally threw its weight behind it. We've always had ada.gov, but they finally came out with an official statement and launched a new website that actually gives you detailed information about how to follow the WCAG, the suggestions, and what to do for your particular applications and products. So if you ever had a chance, I suggest go out there, read ada.gov and all the suggestions that they have. But one of the main reasons why we really need to pay attention to this is because 15% of the world's population has a disability. It's over 1 billion people. I get this a lot. People with disabilities don't use our products. That couldn't be further from the truth. There are a lot of people with disabilities that use technology often, every day. The number one profession for individuals with disabilities, such as ADD and autism, is web development. They use technology. The reason being, this is what people usually think of when you say someone with a disability. You see the two gentlemen using ASL, American Sign Language, to speak. You see the young lady with prosthetic limbs, young lady with cane and her assistive dog, or the gentleman sitting in a wheelchair because he has mobility issues. This is what people think about when you say someone with disability. It is something that you can actually see. You can validate that. You know that that's real. It's tangible. You can touch it. But what about the invisibilities? The disabilities that you aren't aware of. The disabilities that people have to tell you about in order for you to understand or even know that it exists. Cognitive disabilities are the number one category, period. Autism, attention deficit, memory loss. The person next to you could very well have ADD. You wouldn't know unless they told you. And a lot of people don't like to tell people because fear of discrimination. When I'm building applications and I'm speaking to developers who are a little bullish on wanting to do the extra work or just do the work in general to make something accessible, well, why do I have to do this? It's really not going to affect them. Yeah, it is. It's affecting team members that you don't even know about. From Gen X to Gen Z, 19.3 people have a disability. That's a lot of people. Between the ages of 21 to 64. We already know what 2020 up to now was like. We're still in it. There's still some of you in here wearing masks. I have my mask down here. COVID. We hear about long COVID. Long COVID, we often assumed and early assumed that, it just affected the respiratory system, when in reality, it doesn't. We found that the virus is actually neurotropic, which means that it affects the central nervous system. And as a result, depending on the severity of your case, from early studies, it showed that anyone could have a 20 to 70% chance of developing a neurological disability, such as attention deficits, anxiety, and depression. All of these play a part. All of this plays a part in how we interact with technology. There's a quote out of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Plan for what is difficult while it's easy and do what is great while it's small. And I like to attribute this to doing accessible development because you are planning for what is great, what is going to have the largest impact, how you reach all of your potential customers and your current customers. How did you affect them in a positive way? Plan for what is great, but do it while it is small. And this is where a lot of companies are finding themselves now because they did not take the time to work in accessibility into their development and project processes until it was too late. So now they have to go back and retrofit things. So if you did things early on and made it a part of your process, the level of effort is minimal. How many are familiar with the site WebAIM? Okay, a couple of you. Every year, I know for the past couple of years, WebAIM has released a study that they've done where they survey the top 1 million websites and they do an accessibility audit on those home pages. 96.8% of those home pages come back with some form of an accessibility issue. 96. One homepage had 68,826 errors. Honestly, I mean, it's like, what do you... I want to meet these developers. If you're in this room, come talk to me, but keep some distance because I might choose violence. But you have to think about it. It's like, as a developer, what were you thinking or not thinking about when something like this is allowed to ship? Provided that they have a code review process, a lot of us in here are familiar with testing. What did they do with this? How did this even get out? It existed. It's still out there. It all comes down to coding practices. When we think about accessibility, a lot of times we think of the design side. How does it look? Does the contrast high enough? Rarely do we start to think about the underlying architecture of how things are built. That's actually where a lot of stuff falls apart. And it falls apart quickly. Bad coding practices. People that I mentor who have come out of CS degrees from notable colleges to boot camps, they all come to me and say, we really didn't talk about accessibility much or go over it. Our examples, our projects that we built, chances are they weren't accessible. So these are things that are being taught as real world solutions. It doesn't matter what platform you use. Here, we're VueConf. Majority of us use Vue. But we have Angular devs in here. We have Svelte devs in here. Stencil, shout out. React. It doesn't matter. It all boils down to this. The major building block of the web. Markup. HTML. Right now, HTML5. We have the WCAG 2.1. Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Level AA is what we always try to target. Regardless of where you are in the world, if you are in one of those countries that has an accessibility law on the books, it always points back to the success criteria within inside the WCAG 2.1. We have HTML 5.2, that's our spec, WCAG 2.1, and then we have this little tricky double here, ARIA. ARIA gets a lot of people in trouble because a lot of devs think that ARIA is the only thing you need to make something accessible, and that's not really the case. Back to that survey, 74.6% of those home pages had detectable errors caused by inconsistent or incorrect use of ARIA attributes. ARIA first development, bad. Semantic first development, good. It's as simple as that. Good thing about components is that they're reusable, right? It's also the bad thing about components. That's how you end up with 68,000 errors on a project, because whatever component they were using in that particular project, the accessibility wasn't there. So it just multiplied and duplicated. Garbage in, garbage out. So we have to be mindful about how we code our applications. And so what I'm going to go through today is that I want to show you the common issues that I see with markup through various apps that I do accessibility audits on. I've been doing this since 2001, so I've seen quite a few sites out there. And just because I've been doing this since 2001, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. Accessibility has no silver bullet. The solution that may work for your application may not work for your application. Assistive tech is just as fragmented as our browsers used to be years ago. No one ever builds everything the same, but what they do try to do is build to the specs, the HTML spec and the WCAG and ARIA. They at least try to get those right, but they don't add everything, so we have to be mindful of that. But it comes down to semantic markup. Still cracks me up that a lot of experienced developers don't know when to use a button versus a link. You use a link when you're changing the URL, period. If whatever you're building, the feature you're building, if the user's action changes the URL, it should be a link. If it does not change the link, changes the UI in some sort of way, or acts as, just an action for there, make it a button. It should not be a span with an on-click. Yeah, y'all laugh because y'all know, y'all seen it. You're also laughing because you're like, damn, I did that yesterday. Spans, nope, bad move. Divs, same deal. The reason being, a span and a div are not focusable elements. They are great for individuals who have a mouse. But if you have someone who has motor disabilities, or they're a power user and they don't use a mouse, they just use the keyboard, they can't use their keyboard to navigate your UI. Because spans and divs, you can't focus on them. That's the main reason. There's no semantic meaning to those particular elements. Now, a span with a tab index of 0, tab index 0 will put something in the focusable order. But you still run into the other accessibility issues that you are now responsible for since you're not using a semantic element. Buttons. There you go. Type button, boom. The browser does all the work for you. So why do you need to do the extra work? Or you can add your on-click to the button itself with an ARIA label if there is no content inside the button. Common issues that I also see with buttons is that semantically they're structured incorrectly. Don't use divs inside of your button. Flow content is not allowed inside of a button. This has the potential to trip up individuals' assistive tech because it's built on the spec. And if you build it off of the spec, you could have unintended consequences from them using it, even though you're using a button correctly. What you want to do is use a span inside. Anything that goes inside of the button would be a span. Inputs. Designers, I know, I used to be guilty of this as well. We love hiding the labels. Why? Because labels are ugly sometimes. They junk up the UI. It doesn't look right. It doesn't fit the aesthetic. So we hide the labels. Yeah, well, we also just told individuals who have ADD or short-term memory loss that we don't want you to remember what this particular field is during the instance where you may get distracted and you have to come back. And when someone gets distracted with a UI, they make mistakes. And when people make mistakes, they get frustrated. And when people get frustrated, they go on Twitter and tell everyone that your app is trash. That's literally what this boils down to. We need to minimize the level of frustration through minimizing the errors that our users make within our UIs while using our applications. So if you have an input and there's no label, we need to fix that. Go to the next one. Thank you. This one here, implicit labels. Implicit label is the label attribute or the label tag with the input inside of it. This works. It is not 100%. The reason being, there is an application out there called Dragon. Dragon is voice dictation. There are a lot of people who use this to speak to their computers. They will fill out web forms. They will navigate the website. They will write term papers by using Dragon. But Dragon does not like implicit labels. The preferred way, use an explicit label. That means the label sits above your input. Label, open, close, tag, content, and then your input. And you associate that label using the for attribute to the ID. Now, Dragon loves you, screen readers love you, users love you. Text order or tabbing order. I saw a project, this is not an exaggeration, I saw a project last week where the developers used tab index 1 through 19. That's not even real, but anyway, we're just gonna let it ride. What they did is that they felt like they had to control how the user navigated using the keyboard through the form. What they did not account for, that UI was also in 2 columns. That's a whole nother talk that I can talk about. What they did not account for was the reflow. It was 2 columns reflowed into a single column for smaller devices. But now that tabbing order was all out of whack. So now you're starting at the top of the form, you get to the last element of the first group, and now you're starting in the middle, and it started to jump around. That's not how we fill out forms. We fill out forms from top to bottom, hit the submit, go, and hopefully there's no server errors. So what you don't want to do is have a tab index greater than 1. You want to use tab index to put something into the tabbing order to make it focusable. And if you want to remove something from the tabbing index, you want to use -1, but never go above 1. Images. Images are all the rage right now, especially when it's coming to alt attributes. Twitter just added the ability to add alt text to all of our images. And I hope that whenever you're posting pictures on Twitter that you're actually using it, because that actually helps individuals who are using screen readers to understand what it is that you're posting. They want to laugh at the joke too. They want to laugh at the meme as well. So with images, make sure you have an alt attribute. There's still tons of sites out there that don't do this. Tons of developers that don't do this. There's a lot of automated solutions that still leave this attribute out. When it comes to decorative images, it's important to understand that not every image inside your application has to be exposed to assistive tech. It's just there to support the aesthetic of your site. That's considered a decorative image. And what you want to do with a decorative image is that you want to use an empty alt attribute with either a role of presentation or aria hidden equals true. If you do not put anything on there, a screen reader will read the name of your image instead. And to an individual who is using a screen reader, that can be extremely confusing, especially when you have obfuscated image URLs. What does 1, 2, 3, 4, O, T, Q, V, J? That means nothing. It's a puppy. It means nothing. So make sure that you have even your decorative images marked up correctly. This will quiet the UI for assistive users. Headings. Headings mess folks up all the time. I blame word processing that we learned when we were in school on this, because as we were choosing how to format our document, we always went to the shortcut, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Well, that kind of translated into the web years ago. But we really didn't think about how that affects how people with screen readers and other assistive tech actually navigate the web. Those of us who are sighted, we have the ability to scan quickly through the content. 64% of screen reader users use headings to scan through content. So if your markup is structured incorrectly, they're jumping all over the page, missing the content. What you don't want is an H3, H1, H2, H1, H5. You don't want those going out of order. You want the structure to be linear. It's called logical reading order. You want to have one H1, period. One H1. You can have as many H2s through H6s as you need. If you get to H6, you might want to consider refactoring your content because, wow. You very rarely have to go through there. In all my years of doing this, I've rarely seen, even with scientific documentation, something get into an H6. But you want to have that follow a logical reading order. Starts with an H1, the next one would logically be an H2. If that one is a twin, it would be an H2 and then an H3 for the sub-content. This is the conversation for the designers. When you're setting up your Figma files, your UX files, your documentation for design, do not dictate to the developers what element you're expecting to see there. That's how these errors get introduced, because designers associate the element with the visual presentation. That's not how we mark documentation up. The styling is separate from the logic. So instead of using an H1, which has default styles in the browser, what you want to do is set up classes that can be applied to the correct HTML heading and therefore structure your document correctly. Then you can style it correctly. When you're building out your components, you want to start with semantic markup first. Go as far as you can with that. Only when you reach a block, that's when you start to lean on ARIA. That's where ARIA comes into play. ARIA is going to now fill in those gaps where semantic markup can no longer reach. And in this day and age with single page applications, the way that we're building our apps and the way that our UIs have, evolved, you will need ARIA attributes in there. Last night at dinner, I was talking with Paige. Happy birthday to you. Big shout out. We were talking about drop downs. We can't style drop downs. Drop downs are hideous. I don't know why all these years have gone by and we can't style every single element that the browser will render. So we have to build our own. And when you have to build your own, you have to take on the responsibility of making sure that it has everything built into it that the browser already has assigned for us. That requires you to think creatively out the box. But that's a perfect instance of rolling your own, taking accessibility into your own hands, and having to use all of the methods, all of the tools that we have available to us to make sure that we do it correctly. We were talking about building in the interaction for it and how the navigation goes. And she has her HTML structured exactly how it needs to be. But you still have to write the functionality for how an individual is actually going to select it and what they're going to do after that. You have to write the JavaScript that actually breathes the life into it. This is a mistake that I made, and I got my hand slapped from a few of my colleagues who use screen readers on a daily basis. And I thought that I was being, helpful, being, Mr. Accessibility and all. Yeah, I'm doing this. There's a button that I came across. It was disabled, but when I was using a screen reader, it said dimmed. When I say disabled button, what does that mean to you? Can't click it, right? If I tell you it's dimmed, what does that tell you? Yeah, but it also describes the visual presentation of that element. I was like, this can't be right. To me, it's telling me, oh, it's dimmed. It's no longer the color that it was meant to be. It did not tell me that it was disabled. So what I did is that I used an ARIA label. Mistake number 1, first rule of ARIA, don't use ARIA. I wasn't listening. So I put an ARIA label on this button that said disabled. Yay! It's communicating what I want it to do when I'm using the screen reader. Here, listen to it. Tell me what you think. And they're like, what the hell is this? I can't use, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean what I did? I added an ARIA label with disabled. You know it's disabled now. No, I knew it was disabled when it said dimmed. Let me tell you what else you did, Homer. I was like, oh, shit. Not only did I break the experience for my users who use screen readers, I also broke the experience for my international users who use screen readers, where English is not their first language. ARIA labels will supersede and overwrite any of the content that is in that particular element that you have. So if you have something important that you want them to know and you dumb it down using an ARIA label, they're going to miss all of that. It's going to overwrite it. For users in foreign countries where English is not their native tongue, dimmed gets reported back to them in their native tongue. I used an ARIA label with disabled written in English. They have no idea what this means if they don't speak English. I just broke internationalization for all of those elements. Garbage in, garbage out. So I had to go back, roll that PR back. That hurt. Fix it. But it was a lesson learned. Be mindful of over-engineering. First rule of ARIA, don't use ARIA. We have plenty of good tags out there with inside the HTML spec that will do the job for us. Leave things alone. If you're ever in doubt and you think that this ARIA attribute might fix the issue, leave it alone until you test it thoroughly. And speaking about testing, testing has two sides. There's the automated side. Automated. Everybody loves the automated side. The automated side is also what gets companies stung because that's the only thing that they focus on. Why? Because it's automated. It doesn't really take a whole lot of effort to actually dig into, but people mess it up all the time. For automation, these are things that you can do when you're working on your code or just testing anything. Works in all the major browsers. You have Chrome, Firefox, and GitHub. Actually, well, GitHub's not a browser, but you can run the Axe plugin inside Chrome and Firefox. I recommend it. It's built, the Chrome engine, or not the Chrome engine, but the Axe engine by DQ is built into a lot of things. Case in point, VS Code has an Ali plugin. You can run that against any of the markup that you're writing. It's also inside ESLint. Accessibility Insights is built with the Axe core. And Lighthouse, a lot of people don't know this, but Lighthouse powers, or Axe powers the Lighthouse accessibility engine that's built into Chrome as well. When you're doing automated testing, you're not getting a full picture. Depending on the complexity and the test criteria that you have, you're only catching 20 to 57% of those errors. That's the low-hanging fruit that you're catching. You're not actually catching the usability errors for how someone actually uses your app, going from the user journey, beginning to end. So what you need to do is the manual side. All of us here have computers. All of us here have access to screen readers. If you have a Mac, VoiceOver is built into the Mac. Get comfortable with it. It's overwhelming at first. I'll warn you on that. You will have cognitive overload listening to possibly your application if it's not built correctly. NVDA on Windows, open source, it's free. JAWS has a price tag. It's good though. All three of these options are great. Windows also has Narrator. From the last time I checked, Narrator was pretty decent. It's not one of the best ones, but if you don't have NVDA or JAWS, use Narrator. It's built into the OS. Haben Girma, she is deafblind. She is a lawyer and disability advocate. And she says that ableism is incredibly limiting, and we need to be aware of ableism and all the different ways that it comes into our technology. And that leads us into empathy. Empathy means that we understand, we can relate to what others are going through. There are three types of empathy. You have cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. Cognitive empathy, I understand what you're going through. I get it. It's a problem. You came to me with and said that this application, this particular feature in our application is not working for you. I understand your frustration. Emotional empathy means that you can actually put yourself in that person's shoes. That's where the manual testing comes in to play, because now you get user empathy because you are using assistive tech in ways that they would. You are able to discover for yourself the pitfalls inside your application, the friction areas. Friction leads to frustration. Frustration leads to Twitter rages. Then we have compassionate empathy. Compassionate empathy means that you are now taking steps to fix those issues, not allowing them to linger. You understand that this is a pain point for users. You are doing something about it now. Empathy helps us make the world get just a little bit better. Every last one of us in here hope to live till the ripe old age. We're all technology users. As we get older, things change, bodies change, You'll wake up one day and your knee will make a sound that it didn't make yesterday. You may need to use browser zoom to see that tight because your eyes just can't focus in on it like they used to. We all get older. That doesn't necessarily mean that we forget how to use computers, all the things that we've done over the years. So what we have to focus on is we got to start building the applications that we're going to use tomorrow, today, for all of us. Thank you very much. I hope this was informative. Dude.
Great talk, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, give it up one more time for Homer. We got a quick minute or two. Does anybody have any questions for him? One in the back.
One of the challenges I imagine is not knowing what you don't know. So the things that are obvious to me would be somebody doesn't have good eyesight, or they're maybe colorblind, but what are the things you're coding for?
What are you coding for?
Yeah. What is it you're trying to enable somebody to do that isn't just
you want all of your users to be able to use your application. So, for instance, if colorblind users.
Narrower focus. I mean, literally, what would be the top 5 things instead of a broad spectrum? You got to start somewhere.
Starting somewhere is key. A lot of people don't start anywhere. They get task paralysis. But you don't want to just limit yourself and focus on these 5, because now what you've done is that you've only looked at a narrow group of all of your users. So that's why starting with semantic markup reaches the majority of assistive tech. When it comes to design, you want your designers to start thinking about the color contrast that they have. If you have a design system and it has 900 colors in the color palette, pare that down. You don't need all of that. But you want your designers and content developers to start thinking about contrast. That's one of the biggest areas. Contrast should be 4.5 to 1. That will help individuals with low vision, blurry vision, be able to see your UI. So don't think of it as, oh, I need to spearhead this particular one or this particular one or this particular one. If you build with the standards in mind, you are now reaching a larger group. So inside the WCAG, it's broken into 4 sections: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Perceivable is the first section. Perceivable is when you are actually working to make sure that your content is perceivable via the senses that we have when we're interacting with technology. Sight, touch. Make it digital. Digital translates into braille refreshable screens. Sight. Can I see it? Can I perceive this? Even for individuals who are colorblind, yes, they can still see your UI. So you want to make sure that those palettes are correct. Understandable, operable, robust. Robust means that you are reaching the most of the widest range of assistive tech that's out there. You reach that by building using the standards initially. And then you don't have to worry about, okay, this particular person might be having this issue, or this particular person with this disability might be having this issue. What about the individual who just broke their finger and now they can't click? You know, you don't have to worry about that. It's just like with responsive design. We had designers who wanted to control how the UI looked at every single freaking little breakpoint. I had a designer hand me over a prototype. It had 39 breakpoints because he wanted to control how the text looked at every single instance. Who in the world browses and drags it? Nobody does that. We took those 39 and reduced them to 3. My personal projects, I use 1 breakpoint. You either get large screen, I don't like to say desktop, or mobile, because a tablet is mobile, but it could have a desktop resolution. So you either get large screen or you get small form factor. I no longer have to think about what the device is that the person is on there. So if you build using the standards and you start with semantic and you tell your designers to make sure that they are thinking about the user's journey in addition to a reduced color palette or a color palette that makes sense, that actually meets the standards for accessibility, minimum contrast, you don't have to worry about anyone else's, all those little fringe things. You don't have to worry about those either. It makes your job a lot easier. And you're making your users a lot happier.
All right, well, we're out of time for any more questions for Homer, but I know that if you talk to this guy out in the lobby, he will talk your ear off about it. So please hit him up.
Thank you.
All right, give it up.